Good morning, everybody. I want to take a few minutes this morning to talk about spark arrestors. Spark arrestors are an essential piece of safety equipment that should be on and operating and functioning properly on most of our small engine equipment. It's to prevent sparks from coming out of the exhaust and inadvertently starting fires or igniting fuel. Anyway, quick backstory about spark arrestors and properly running equipment. Yesterday I was out on a tree crew and one of our climbers was attempting to make a cut. He was doing a little bit of rigging over a house. Everything was going just fine. However, when he started to use the saw he was using a top-handled chainsaw. It's very similar to this one, and he couldn't start the saw without having his finger on the throttle. He had to kind of goose the throttle to get it running and then lay it into the piece of wood, and it kept bogging down, kept stalling. And me being, safety guy who's never in a hurry, hollered up and said, "Hey, let's stop what you're doing. Let's get you a properly operating saw and move on, and I'll take care of the repairs." So properly operating equipment is essential to working safely. I'll get into that more in a minute. Properly cleaned spark arrestor is essential for most equipment to run the way it should. If your equipment's not running properly, you're not going to be making the safest decisions. Example, guy up in a tree climbing, you're worried about being tied in twice, you're worried about being in a good body position, you're worried about not slipping or losing your balance while you're cutting. A lot of things going on. The last thing you want is for a saw not to be running properly, and then you have to pull this or start the saw with your hand on the throttle and the chain brake not on. That's the first step in one of those incidents that's usually caused by multiple steps. Every incident is always started or triggered by one thing. A lot of times it's shortcuts around malfunctioning equipment that get guys in trouble. So turned out more than one saw on those couple crews was not running right, so I got them and took them to Cedar Grove, got them checked out, and it came back that it was just a simple gummed up spark arrestor. Simple fix. If I would have investigated the problems myself, that would have been one of the first things I checked. So I'm going to show everybody here how to fix a gummed up spark arrestor. It's a common problem with top-handled chainsaws and your blowers. Okay, it's going to be a problem with any piece of equipment that is started from cold and then ran for a very short time and then shut off. Example, a climbing saw. Guys are thinning out a big tree. You might take a saw with you, climb for 4 hours, and only start it up and make 6 cuts. You're choking it, you're starting it up, you're making 1 cut, and you're putting it away. It's getting cooled off. So the exhaust and the motor never gets hot enough to heat up that spark arrestor to keep it cleaned out. Blowers are the same way. Rarely do you run a blower more than a minute or two. Gets started up once a day, shut off, and put away. So spark arrestors, they're in the muffler. I'm going to demonstrate where one is with an MS200. On this saw, it happens to be, there we go, that screw right there, which is a star fitting, which every crew should have. This little black L-shaped wrench that comes with chainsaws. Let's take out one screw, straight screwdriver. Loosen that up, slide it out. Please be careful. Obviously, if I was just running this saw, it's going to be hot. Hold the spark arrestor with a pair of pliers. Get to play with fire, kids, so take some precautions. If I wanted to be really safe, I'd have gloves on, but I'm going to hold it with a pair of pliers. Take a torch. If you're in the field, a lighter, cigarette lighter will work, but torch is much easier. And then you just simply burn the gunk and gum off of the screen of that spark arrestor. Typically it just takes a few seconds. And let it cool for a minute. And that can be put right back in. That allows the muffler to work better. You might hear some guys say, well, I just take mine out, or I drill an extra hole in the muffler. Well, I can't technically say that, considering a spark arrestor is a essential piece of safety equipment. Blower, some saw wrenches I found will fit that fitting in the muffler. However, this is a 15 mil socket. Spark arrestor on this guy is that nipple looking thing right there. Take this out. That's what it looks like. Okay. This happens to be fairly clean. I just pulled this off the shelf for demonstration purposes. If this blower was not running properly, if it doesn't feel like it can throttle up the whole way, if it constantly feels like it's being choked, probably a spark arrestor. Same thing. Take a torch. Heat that bad boy up. Burn all the gunk off there. And you'll be good to go. Save you a trip. Will save you the hassle of tagging a piece of equipment that you really don't want to get rid of. Your bigger chainsaws are not going to have this problem as often, because when you use a bigger saw, you're usually making multiple cuts, big chunks of wood. That saw and that muffler are getting hot, and it's keeping that spark arrestor cleaned out just by running the saw. Again, where this is going to be a problem is with your smaller saws, your blowers that are only getting run for short periods of time and then getting shut off and allowed to cool. So that's your tip for the week. That's your tailgate meeting for the week. I hope everybody remembers this, because it is a really easy way to improve how your equipment's going to run, how it's going to perform. It's going to improve efficiency. You're going to look awesome when one of your new guys comes and says, hey, this thing ain't running worth a crap. And you're like, it's probably the spark arrestor. So there you have it. Take care. See you later.